Welcome to MOBE Mondays. This is Women in Advertising Week, and today is sales and where is the money? Follow the money. And so today we want to honor Radia Jones for her legendary service in the advertising industry. We ask that you Google her and read her bio. And we want to recognize the women that were making a difference in the advertising industry as we kick off Women's History Month. So today I'm going to introduce you to Judene Walden, who is the moderator for today. Judene Walden joins Google as the head of industry for the Home and Consumer Services Division in the Atlanta office. Prior to Google, she was the head of media for Afropunk, a media and entertainment company where she led global media sales across their emerging digital portfolios. Judene has held leadership roles in the publishing and ad tech industries for companies like Time Incorporated, Urban One, Johnson Publishing, Moguldom Media Group, Hearst, and AdSlot. She has spoken on numerous panels focusing on the intersection of niche marketing and digital media. Welcome to MOBE Mondays. Judene Walden will be your moderator.
Thank you so much, and welcome everybody. Really appreciate you attending this symposium with us. We've got some wonderful talents on our panel, and I want to get right into it, but I always, in this time of COVID, quarantine, etc., always want to check in with people and just kind of see how they're doing and make sure they're being seen. But more than that, I want to find out what you're doing to cope during this time. Whatever you do to calm you, whatever you do to relax you, etc. So I will start with Lori. Didn't rehearse that at all, Lori.
Well, you know what? Working from home and COVID has been quite an experience. What I've learned to do, my main thing is set boundaries. That is my self-care, setting boundaries, because when we are at home all the time, people feel the need to call you 24/7, early in the morning, late at night. And I find that if I set those boundaries, I'll be okay. And it's much better. And of course, long baths and, homemade manicure, pedicures. I've just really learned to do all those things and take time for myself. So those are the main things. But the main thing is boundaries. You have to set them so you can keep your mind straight.
Absolutely. Yesenia, I see you nodding your head. That resonates with you, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me tonight. I couldn't agree more with Lori. I think especially since you're working from the comfort of your home, I think it's especially as meetings are getting set up back to back to back to back, it's very hard to sometimes control your calendar, and family members and friends are checking in and calling all the time. You just have to make a decision to create those boundaries, set an alarm to go to bed early, get your rest. For me, it's all about, feeling gratitude and saying a prayer in the morning and at night. The temptation is to complain because we want to get out there, we want to travel, we want to go back to normal life. And we think that things are so bad, but in reality, we're very blessed. So for me, it's recognizing that every morning and every night and kind of, going with the day and with the flow, but definitely setting up boundaries for myself as well, for my well-being.
Great. And Winnie, do you have anything to add?
Actually, Yesenia just stole what I was going to say. First of all, I want to thank you guys for being part of this panel. I am so honored and excited to be, here on this panel with you fantastic ladies. So it really means a lot to me. What do I do to, sort of just make myself, just stay sane? And the first thing that I do every morning is either prayer or meditate before you get out of bed, before you do anything. To me, that's the most important thing. It helps you to focus. It helps you to prioritize your day. And it just helps you to say thank you for waking up another day. The other thing that I really encourage and I do myself is, we have a tendency to be home and just stay in the house the entire day. I force myself to go out, even if it's to the mailbox, to the corner, leave the house, get a little fresh air every day. That works wonders for me. And I mean, it's basically like my sanity.
Great. All great ideas and suggestions. So I have to add a few of them. For me, I have to agree absolutely 100%, but my escapism is TV and on the small screen, so I can just pop it up somewhere and multitask or whatever. But that, I guess that's my window into the outside world. You know, Winnie, you actually get out and do it. And this is my pretend way of doing it. So thank you. Okay, so I went a little backwards in the order, but I wanted everyone to introduce yourself. I will ask you a question about yourself and what you're doing. And if you could just take that opportunity to introduce yourself, let the audience know who you are, what you're doing, and then, you know, address the question in the best way you see. So Winnie, you're up. You're first. I'm going in alphabetical order.
I am very happy to go first. Okay, so I will tell you a little bit about myself. I am currently the Vice President of Advertising Sales for Bounce TV, one of the many networks under the EW Scripps umbrella. EW Scripps is a 106-year-old company, and Bounce falls under their portfolio of networks. So my journey started in the music industry, basically. I mean, I was a young, right out of school, right out of college person. I worked at a record label, Tommy Boy. I know I'm dating myself. Working with artists like Queen Latifah, De La Soul, House of Pain, Naughty by Nature. I loved it. It was super, super exciting. I mean, back then, music industry had like great parties. I mean, it was so much fun. So like I said, I loved it, but you know, the music industry was changing, and you know, a sales opportunity presented itself at Vibe magazine, which at that time was like, oh my God, Vibe magazine, like the ad magazine. So selling the entertainment category. So I accepted that position, and that's how I transitioned into sales. And I mean, it was a natural transition for me because I was on the entertainment side, and I transitioned over to selling the entertainment category. And then from there, I just kind of rose up the ladder. I climbed up the ladder, being at Viacom, BET, and now Bounce and EW Scripps. So that's kind of like my journey to where I'm at now. I think part of your question I had asked, should we go into the challenges? Yeah. You're on mute. Okay. One of the
Yeah, I was trying to be respectful and go on mute, but thank you for reminding me. I think what we had down was, what were the biggest changes over the course of your career? Because you went from record label to selling the entertainment industry, and now you're full on, like, I'm going to go ahead and say it, running an entire TV station. How's that?
Yeah, you can say it. You can say it. But it's okay. I'll tell you what, to me, the biggest change I've seen over, you know, my career is the shrinking of multicultural agencies. One of my favorite movies is, God, the name escapes me, but you know, it was about Uniworld with Eddie Murphy and
Boomerang.
Boomerang, yes, that's
Boomerang.
right.
You know, you're gonna have to give your card back, right?
I know, like. But you know, just to be honest, the shrinking of multicultural agencies has really bothered me, and the fact that, you know, now instead of having multicultural agencies, the general market agencies are doing everything and buying everything, including multicultural. I think they call that total market. But what that's doing, it's forcing a lot of, you know, these smaller agencies that specialize in reaching our audience out of business. And, you know, it's forced me to sort of go client direct to the client, because oftentimes the client will have a multicultural initiative and will explain it and tell their agency, this is what we're trying to do. But then it would somehow get lost in translation, and the agencies will not necessarily spend on multicultural media. So to me, that's the biggest change and the most challenging frustration that I have.
Sure. And I am going to agree with that. I saw that change happening at a magazine I was working with, I'll just put it like that. And they were shifting towards targeting multicultural agencies. And I just, in my heart, I said, that's not fair. There are so many publications on the ground doing the work, and, you're just making a business pivot that's,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's devastating. So I appreciate that. And thank you very much. Okay. Yesenia, you are on mute. I will do that for you. First of all, congratulations on your new role at iHeart Media. I know you just started, so we won't get too deep into that. But you also have had an illustrious career kind of moving through the ranks of multicultural marketing across various platforms. So I was hoping you could talk to us about your path to iHeart, and then you touch a little bit on what you're going to be doing next.
Absolutely. Thank you. And listening to Winnie go through her career path just brings me back so many memories of my early days in advertising. I started interning for a very young cable network back when the cable boom happened about, almost 20 years ago. And I was interning. I didn't really know about multicultural marketing. It was just me out of college wanting to have an internship, and a cable network sounded really cool. And then after that internship, I ended up getting hired at Telemundo and NBC. And so I kind of fell into the multicultural space by accident, just because I did that internship and it was fun and I loved it. And then Telemundo kind of put me into this like Hispanic media bucket, right? And I loved it there. I grew up with Telemundo, my early days in my career. I was there for 8 years. And then I was very fortunate to, after that experience, move over to Hulu. Hulu at the time was launching a new Latino channel with Spanish language television, the telenovelas, the movies. They also had BET. They had other networks that are, under the multicultural umbrella. So I came over to Hulu to oversee that strategy. It was a lot of fun. Obviously, startup company. Now Hulu is huge, right? Owned by Disney. But in the early days of Hulu, it was incredibly fun to work there. I love that experience. And then I moved over to Google. As you guys know, ladies know, Google has huge multicultural audiences, not only because a lot of the YouTube creators are Black and Hispanic and multicultural, and that content really attracts multicultural audiences, but also within the search space, Spanish language searches in so many different languages. A lot of that is obviously multicultural focused. So I was very fortunate to spend 3 years at Google under the multicultural team. And then about a year and a half ago, I moved over to iHeart. And I came over because we wanted to relaunch our multicultural efforts. The fact that we have some of our biggest personalities, like The Breakfast Club, Steve Harvey, Enrique Santos, are draw a huge multicultural audience. I thought, we are so well positioned for this audience. So I came over, and then obviously after the year that we had last year, the company decided to dive deeper into diversity and inclusion, and they created the diversity and inclusion role. My manager, Michelle Lavin, is the Chief Diversity Officer, and she brought me on board, taking me away from sales to dive into the ever-evolving and exciting world of diversity and inclusion. And I feel incredibly fortunate because, working in multicultural for so many years and having those conversations with brands and agencies about the importance of multicultural audiences, the growth, the impact, the power, the influence, I've carried that with me for so many years. And now to be able to impact a company from an employee internal perspective, knowing, the challenges that people of color face in corporate America, for me is I'm very fortunate. So I'm very excited to dive into that, to this role and this responsibility.
Fantastic. It is a big responsibility, and we're really excited to have you on the ground floor working for us. Two, I guess I'm going to go to Lori. Save that and go to Lori. Lori, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. You are in the marketing department, and I personally have the utmost respect for the marketers that support the sales team, because I know for a fact, for me, without you, I wouldn't have gotten some of the deals done. So, kudos to you, your team, and, everything that you're doing to pull that together. I should say more importantly, but I wanted to know a little bit about your day-to-day and how you see yourself impacting the sales process. And two, I'm going to slip a nugget in. You are a best-selling author, and I wanted you to tell us more about your book and kind of what prompted you to write that book and where you're going next with it.
Okay. Well, first, I'm honored to be on the panel with you ladies. Thank you so much. And also, Judene, thank you for recognizing the marketers, because a lot of times I feel that we kind of just, hey, here, I need an idea, and then they run with it, and that's fine. But just it's nice to be appreciated. So thank you. A typical day for me, I'm currently at Radio One. I'm the ad sales marketing manager. I work with our national corporate sales division. For me, it was a shift because I come from local radio, where I was the marketing director for radio stations around the country, from Atlanta, DC, Miami. So now this current role, living in Jersey City or New York, I'm now working with national sales. And like I said, it was a shift because working more on the national sales side was way different than local. And so it has been a learning experience, but it's been great. But day to day, it's literally what you said. So we have a sales rep will come and, hey, I need 3-4 ideas for client A. I'm not going to throw a client name out there, but I need these ideas. And so it's up to me to package them. Go ahead.
You forgot the part about it being due in 2 hours.
Oh,
don't forget that. That's very important.
I need it in 2 hours. I need a deck. I need all the assets. I need everything. So it's a lot of running around, but to me, it's been about a lot of relationships, because if they want something with Ricky Smiley, I have to know that Ricky Smiley is not going to do that because he doesn't, do those type of reads, or he doesn't like that product or whatever. So it is really a lot of pulling things together. And a typical day is the deadlines, a lot of ideation. And sometimes I don't have any more ideas to give. And it's just, I'm just pulling from things maybe we did maybe a year ago, but that's really a typical day, so to speak, and a lot of meetings to come up with what can we do? What is different? What's going to make us stand out as Radio One? And so that's really a typical day. Oh, the book.
Yes.
So I did write a book. It's been about 3-4 years ago. It's called A Seat at the Table, a survival guide for women in business. It came out of I had a lot of younger interns and people coming to me and asking questions such as, how do I get a job? How do I grow in the ranks? How do I come into a company and, show myself approved? And how do I do well? And so I literally sat down and did a brain dump and wrote everything out into a book form. And so every time they had a question, I said, hey, here's the book, get your seat at the table. And it's just really a layman's term guide of how do you do this, how you do that, really geared towards our younger brothers and sisters, so they can understand the basic things that we know, but they might not know. And I think it's been helpful for them because it literally is the basic things that you may think, how do you shake someone's hand when you come into a room? How do you command the room when you walk into a room? Because I learned I saw a lot of times they would have their heads down, or they come in and they don't know how to greet or how to run a meeting, things like that.
That's great. And I think they're perfect refreshers. You say it's for a younger audience, but I think everyone can, especially when we do get the opportunity to return to work again, which,
yeah, exactly.
Who knows what that's going to look like. Yeah. So, okay, I am ready to delve into the questions. Hope you ladies are ready. Here we go. So 2020, COVID, quarantine, you had the death of George Floyd, which bore a conscience in corporate America in terms of what they are doing or not doing. And Fortune 500 companies earmarked hundreds of millions of dollars to support Black causes and Black businesses. Can you share what you're comfortable sharing, how it has impacted your businesses? I will call a name randomly. Yesenia.
I knew you were going to call me. Well,
I was looking at you.
Building from a tragic situation, right? Anyone that has been in the multicultural space for many years knows the struggle, right? It's never easy to, to make the case for multicultural. Oftentimes clients are not ready for it, agencies are not ready for it, especially as agencies are being swallowed up by the total market approach, right? And so what that incident really did for multicultural was really put the truth in front of everyone, right? And kind of forced all clients and agencies to really take a hard look at where they've been missing the mark and how can they somehow restore some of the lack of attention that they've had on multicultural audiences. So, I never want to think about the unfortunate death of George Floyd as an opportunity for us to monetize content or anything in that nature. But for those of us that have been in multicultural, it's kind of like, did it really have to take someone dying so tragically for agencies and brands to pay attention? It's not necessary. We could have been proactive about this when we spoke about this small opportunity a long time ago, right? So for us, going back to what I mentioned earlier, having, shows like The Breakfast Club, right? Where they're really leading Black culture in so many different ways with conversation and really kind of having really difficult conversations on air, right? Having those shows really kind of helped us, manage these topics and really think about how can we really create a meaningful and compelling opportunity for advertisers to come in and really speak to Black audiences in the right way. So for me, after May, it was a very busy year, just having conversations with agencies, with brands on, how do we think about this audience? How do we think about this marketplace? What can we do now? I did like seeing that a lot of agencies and brands were really focused on uplifting the Black community, supporting the Black community, not necessarily selling more products, but, helping uplift this community and keep the spirit high. And so it was a lot of those conversations. So, I feel like the pandemic really affected our business across the board. Everyone, whether you're TV or radio or digital, we were all affected. And then after this incident with George Floyd happened, it was kind of like shifting the attention to multicultural. So because of that, in some crazy positive way, we're able to really accelerate those conversations that were really stalled because of the pandemic and because people were not really paying attention to multicultural before that. So yeah.
I'll go next.
Thank you. Winnie, anything to add?
That time was a very emotional time for me. I remember having our daily Zoom meetings, me and my colleagues, our sales team, and, I actually had to get off and, a couple of my colleagues, Caucasian colleagues actually called me and was like, I totally understand how you feel. I mean, not totally understand, but, I get how you feel, whatever you need. I mean, it was very emotional for me and sad, but as Yesenia mentioned, the positive that's coming out of it. I mean, it happened and it was tragic, but there are a lot of benefits. There are things it propelled, or it brought a lot to light. As companies are recognizing that there really is a problem, and it's not just a police brutality problem, but it's a systemic racism problem. Whether or not a person might think they're racist or not, they may not be racist, but they may have these these biases that just make them act in a certain way. And with myself, although I'm selling a Black network, I do call on general market agencies. I'm talking to people who don't know my product, and I just have to convince them. So it's very challenging. I see positives coming out of it. I see a lot of Black and brown people being promoted into D&I position where they could make a change, make a positive change. I see more Black and brown people being put on boards that used to be 100% white male. So I'm happy to see that. And one more thing that one agency group is doing, I think probably one of the first, is they're having an upfront, or what they call a Black focused media conference, where they're asking all the Black targeted networks and media to come in and present your property, because you probably weren't being well represented or well received in the past.
Absolutely right. That's great. I didn't know that, but I'm so happy to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
It warms my heart, actually.
Yeah.
Lori, what about on your end? What are you seeing?
You know what? When the George Floyd situation happened, it was like the floodgates opened, and we were the cool kids on the block. Everyone was calling us now to get on the airwaves to share a message. And as one of the panel, I can't remember if it was Yesenia or Winnie said, it wasn't about the product, but maybe just a message. So it wasn't like I'm promoting this product, but I want to just send a message to the audience to let them know that we are a brand that cares.
Mm-hmm.
And they were so quick and wanting to get on the air. So for us, again, we're like, okay, finally, we're getting the phone calls. Before, we're not always the first phone call. So we got the phone calls, and we were very busy, which was a good thing, because for a while it was a lull. It was like, oh gosh, what are we going to do? So I think that although it was a bad situation, it still brought some positives out. And I think that it was an awakening for our advertisers to realize, like, hey, you know what? Let me pay more attention, to African Americans and the consumer, and really speak to them genuinely, not just throw something out there. So.
Got it. Now, you are at an interesting intersection just in terms of the marketing, and you kind of mentioned it. The advertisers saying, "Hey, we're not going to push our product on you, but we're out there. We're kind of identifying with what you're going through." As a marketer, how do you not cheat that moment, if you will, in terms of what you're putting out? You're still sticking to the product message, or are you actually, saying like, these are times, and yay for product X for being here with us, or what have you? What direction are you going with your messaging, I guess?
I think, you know what, it's a mixture, because we want to put out a good product to our audience. I will share one example of a client who came to us. I was actually very impressed. This was the first time that this client wanted our air personalities, our syndicated personalities. They wanted Ricky, Erica Campbell, DL Hughley to go off script and share a moment of when they had to deal with racism. And then the tagline was sponsored by so-and-so. So this particular client did not want us to read a script about their product or anything of that nature. So it was the most genuine marketing, I believe, that we could do, because it came from the heart of the air personality.
Mm-hmm.
And they were even like, there's no script. I just get to tell you about a time I experienced racism. And I think that was a pretty big deal, because normally it's a very scripted out, so-and-so salutes Black women or Black men, or, and we care. This time it was not. And I think that was a very impactful campaign that we did. Other than that, we just try to work with the client to find ways to get their message out that is genuine, on the side of the audience, but then, hits their goals too.
Right. And Winnie, you mentioned something that kind of touched me, because it was a very emotional time. And it was one of the rare times that our personal and professional really collided. Like, we are Black salespeople selling our multicultural marketplace. So, there's that obvious affinity. Mm-hmm. But to have something so raw happen, and to still show up your authentic self and be hurt by it, and I don't know, it was just such a time to kind of take it all in, still be professional, but at the time, look, I got to take a break. This is too much.
Yeah. And we try real hard most of the time to put that aside,
we have to. We have to.
And this was a time where it had to clash. It clashed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So thank you all for sharing your moments with that, because I know it was different for everybody, but there was still a hurt there that happened. And I'm happy for the roles that we're in, where we do get to push that messaging and, kind of build around it, that coalition. So good luck for 2021. Yeah. I had a different question, but we have a question from, I believe, our Facebook audience. So I'm just going to read that, and just raise your hand when you want to jump in. The multi-billion-dollar advertising industry is in the midst of a great disruption with the fractioning of media, exponential growth of social media and streaming platforms, combined with a consumer social awakening. Marketing executives are ultimately responsible for the ROI. How are they navigating, connecting, measuring, and evaluating opportunity for the new paradigm. I know that's a mouthful, so take what you want from it. Anybody?
Oh, I said that's not a.
Oh, yes, it's on the chat on the right-hand side too.
Okay, let me see. What is it's pretty long, but what is the question?
Oh, it's not a question, that particular one.
Oh, it's just a comment.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are there more? Oh, wow. We have a lot of Facebook questions. I'm so sorry. I was at the top one. But basically, with the fragmentation in the marketplace, what are your marketers, your clients, your advertising agencies telling you in terms of how they're now going to navigate, measure, evaluate audiences, particularly the multicultural audience, because for so long, we've just not been measured the way we needed to be. So what are you seeing about that and any changes around that?
I'll go ahead, Yesenia. Oh, okay. I'll go. I thought you raised your hand. I'll take this one. I think, well, particularly for linear television, Nielsen is the currency. It's a measurement tool, and we'll start with that because we are underrepresented, not only as Black and brown and just people, but just there are 331 million Americans, and Nielsen's sample size that tells you what the ratings and how many people watch a certain show is 15,000. So they take 15,000 and extrapolate for 330 million people. So and then to think about that, of that 15,000, say African Americans make up 14% of that. It's if one African American household moves their needle, that multicultural, how many African Americans watch it, like one person could make a huge 20% increase or decrease. So first of all, I think the first step would be to get, Nielsen is the Bible and they've been around, and this is what the currency is that we use for TV, but we need a better tool that takes in linear into consideration, takes in social and digital into consideration, because viewers are watching multiple screens at one time, and Nielsen is not right now capable of capturing first of all, they're not doing a great job at just the linear part, but then to marry that with social, digital, OTT, and TTV, we just need better tools.
And if I can jump in on that, I think especially with more media budgets shifting towards multicultural audiences this year, next year, because of the increased interest and demand, when those budgets are placed, but they can't be properly measured because of the lack of sampling, the lack of proper representation, it's really only going to hurt us again, because these brands are going to place all these dollars and then they're going to ask for ROI, but it's really challenging to really measure that ROI without proper representation. So, one comes with the other. If we are going to continue to drive multicultural revenue growth, that measurement piece needs to be fixed, right? Needs to be accurately represented. So I just wanted to add that, hopefully in 2023, when, things balance out again, and we will hopefully continue to see those budgets, but the data just needs to get better. The measurement needs to get better. The representation, the sampling needs to get better for sure across the board, because now you also have podcasting in the mix, right? And you have more social media and shopping. So again, there's just a lack of proper representation across the board.
Agreed. And guys, so sorry about that. I was reading the plug for tomorrow's show. That wasn't actually a question for our audience, so I'm going to back that up. Winnie, someone wants to know, how can we find out about the Black Media Conference that you mentioned?
Okay, so it's something that we were invited to. It's an agency group called Magna, and they invite their partners to come in and present. I'd imagine that you'd have to have a relationship with them already.
Mm-hmm. So it's like a media day, invite only.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Exactly.
Gotcha. And I think it was either Winnie or Yesenia, you mentioned with the George Floyd question that agencies were open, and it used to be a time our big months were February, kind of January, February, Martin Luther King, Black History Month, and then never to be heard from again until the holidays, and you just kind of had to barge your way into somebody's media plan. The question from Facebook is, do you believe that corporations will sustain their efforts? Throughout the year with everything that has happened?
Well, that's a great question. And again, thinking about the year that we're in, 2021, and still operating under limited, mobility with COVID, come 2023, I think agencies and clients are going to have to prove that they really care. And when multicultural executives continue to knock on those doors and ask for those budgets and make the case for those budgets, and they're no longer responding or answering, it'll very clearly show that it was a reactive, opportunistic way. And I think that's an opportunity for all of us to speak up and really hold them accountable, right? In a way that, just because, the momentum happened with this conversation doesn't mean that the audience disappeared. We're just growing, we're getting stronger, we're more influential. And so we kind of have to hold them accountable and make sure that they're continuing to spend and to dedicate their efforts to multicultural audiences, just like they were in 2020 and like they are in 2021.
Definitely. Another Facebook question is, who are the decision makers that you all are actually selling to? Winnie, you mentioned you were now forced to go to the client because the agencies were, sometimes not relaying all the messages. Yesenia, you have a whole different message, you're going to have to go to, and I know, Lori, you have multiple client partners. So just who in your line of business are the decision makers?
In my line of business, the decision makers are typically at the agency. Media buyers, it starts with media buyers, assistant supervisors. So it's at the agency. However, their boss is the client. Let's say, I'm just throwing out a name, I don't know, product Z hires agency Y, agency Y, they hire agency Y for their expertise and being able to get good pricing and, to place their media. Now, if the client has a multicultural initiative and they tell their agency, the agency will, sometime do it. They'll say, hey, we bought one thing, here. And if I'm not being considered and at the agency, then I would go to the client, and then the client is the decision maker. Ultimately, the client is the decision maker.
I would agree, because ultimately the client, we had an agency call today, and they're obviously speaking on behalf of the client, and they're saying, we need this because client X is not going to go for it. But ultimately, I have seen, we will go directly to the client if there seems to be a little turmoil or not getting. So going directly to the client just to say, hey, I know you have this initiative. We'd really like to do this for you, because sometimes the messaging gets mixed between agency and client.
Yes. Right. Absolutely. I would definitely agree with that. And so interesting in terms of, we've talked a lot about the challenges of the job, and kind of, you can pick a decade and it's going to be a little bit different, but, it's not a first look for most agencies or clients to select multicultural on their bucket list. So I want to know, for everyone listening, what do you love about your job? Obviously we all came here for a reason. It's so funny. I think we've all crisscrossed different companies at some point, but we've never worked together. So, and been in the game for a long time. So what do you love about your job? To just kind of share, why are we still doing this with all these challenges?
Can I go first?
Yes, please.
I love that question, because time and time again, when I look back at my experiences at every company that I've been at, working in multicultural is oftentimes the funnest vertical because of the people we work with. The events that we go to are probably the funnest events, right? thinking back to the TV upfront days and, the digital upfront days, you're going to have a great time when you went to like, a Telemundo upfront, for example, in the Hispanic world, or if you went to a BET upfront, or it's just so much fun. And I just love this space, and I will do it all over again just for those experiences and the friendships and the relationships that I've built. And to me, there's nothing better than working with people that look like you, kind of like sound like you and grew up like you. I think the camaraderie is very special, and I love that.
Agreed. Lori?
Everything that Yesenia said, I enjoy coming up with these ideas. Although some days I'm like, I have nothing left to give, but it's like, wow, I can really make a difference. I can come up with something. Pre-COVID, I really love producing and putting together big shows because, we'd be frustrated all the way through, like, oh my gosh, we got to do this. Oh my gosh. But then as you stand there and look at 20,000 people watching a show that you put together with your team, that is pretty exciting. And you can't help but be like, wow, I did that. And so that's fun. And then media people are just different. Like it's just a different, it is family. They get on your nerves, but you love them. It's never a dull moment. It's never a dull moment. I mean, I just think back to stories like, I can't believe that happened. I cannot believe that, this campaign, this happened. And oh my gosh, somebody was on the air and they said something wrong and they said some bad words. And it's just stuff that, you just can't believe that you actually go to work and do. And so, you can't help but think it's a lot of fun. And I think that's a great question because no one really ever asked that. Like, what do you like? I think that was great, Judene. So thank you for that question.
Winnie, I know you got some loves. What is it?
I'll tell you what it is. I love my job, but I never thought that I would. When I was at the record label, someone approached me and was like, you should really, there's a job at Vibe, you should really think about it. I'm like, I work for a record label. I can't.
I would never.
And then I never actually saw myself as a salesperson. I always thought, like, oh, used car salespeople, shiesty and
yes.
But now that I'm in it, having been in it for like close to 20 years now, I love it. For me, different people have different style. My style is about building relationships, and I love the relationships that I've built. I mean, I can go back years, people from like prior to this job where I'm at, other, like what motivates me is building relationships, going out with people, having lunch, getting to know them, finding out about them. I love that. That's the part. Building relationship is the part that I really love about my job.
Fantastic. Thank you. I have to agree on all of the above. I came from banking, and just the stark differences between finance and media, entertainment, for all of the reasons you named, I will never look back. Like, I'm just happy to balance my checkbook and keep going. So a little bit of predictions. We're about to finish up the first quarter of 2021 after call 2020, whatever you need to, but just kind of looking forward to predictions. What do you think is going to happen for the industry? Crystal ball, what do you want to see happen? Where do we go from here?
I can start. I think 2021 will close with more authenticity from agencies and brands, genuine effort. I mean, at least that's what I want to see, right? Genuine effort, all of these brands that are buying the Black History Month, the Women History Month, the Hispanic Heritage Month, the Asian American Pacific Islander Month. I want to see authentic effort put into this marketplace. I want to see sustainable spend, not just in 2021, for the next, for the future. I want to see the spend match really where this multicultural audience is growing. We're driving population growth more than any other segment. So I want to see that sustained. And I want to see corporate America create a more inclusive culture for all of us, people of color. We are incredibly talented, passionate, caring individuals. And I want to see corporate America recognize that. And so that's, I don't know if a prediction, but at least my wish list.
Yeah, that's perfect. Winnie?
I would have to agree with that. And just to, add to that, we know that the industry is changing. COVID has sped up the rate of change of people, just watching regular TV, linear TV, to, either streaming and other forms of television. We all know that's going to continue. But I know, and we all know that, medium don't die. TV is not going to die. Radio was supposed to die 100 years ago, and TV was supposed to, radio was supposed to die when TV came along, and then TV was supposed to die when the internet came. Medium don't die, they evolve. And I'm just kind of, excited to see the evolution and what's going to happen with, the media, particularly like TV and that whole space, the OTT, CTV, and that whole space.
Sure. And Winnie, I'm going to get back to you, Lori, to answer the question, but I wanted to follow up on a question, something you mentioned, Winnie, in terms of evolving media. And I'm not sure how many are on Clubhouse in terms of social audio, which is a new evolving space. But Yesenia, you mentioned how most of the creators on YouTube were Black and Brown creators. So I'm just wondering, in terms of these platforms that give us access for so long, that we didn't have it, what is your take on the evolving and just kind of adding in more players? And, is it a bigger pie, or is it just a smaller pie with the same budget?
Yeah, I think it's, for people of colors, creating more opportunities to share our stories. What I love about YouTube is the fact that, anyone can create the content that they don't see anywhere else. The same is happening for the podcasting space. It's so easy to create a podcast. You can tell your story and other stories on that platform. So I think it's just creating more opportunities for us to kind of take control. And if we don't see stories that we want to see anywhere, we can create them. And so that's same with social media, with audio, with everything. The medium is just evolving, right? So it's just kind of giving us more control. And again, we don't have to ask for permission. We're kind of like taking the reins, which is what I love most about where the evolution of all media.
Definitely. I like that. Unapologetic, not asking for permission, just doing what we know how to do. And sorry to cut in, Lori.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine. The crystal ball, what yes. I see, I predict, and maybe, I don't even know if I predict this, but I think that corporations will continue the charge to connect with the multicultural audience the best way that they can. However, we must continue to educate them, and we must hold them accountable for what they say that they want to do. Ironically, I have a call with someone to talk about Juneteenth tomorrow. And, that was something that back in the day, what is Juneteenth? Exactly. We actually want some messaging around Juneteenth, and I'm excited about it because it's like, okay, we're moving from Black History Month to now Black Music Month in June to now Juneteenth in June. And then any other, multicultural type theme day, we're throwing that out there to them. And so again, it is up to us. We want to make this crystal ball really come to fruition. We on this side have to make sure that we are continuing to put that in their face and on their plate so that they are aware of what we have and then hold them accountable.
Yeah, that's so funny about Juneteenth, because that was, I think last year someone declared it an actual holiday for a state with Virginia. I'm sitting in Virginia. Right. I was like, what? Exactly. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy. I'm going to open it up if you guys have any questions that I may have missed that you want to know about. Otherwise, I was just going to do a lightning round. See where it takes us.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Work from home or return to office?
Hybrid.
Work from home.
Work from home.
Work from home.
Hybrid.
Oh,
work
hybrid.
From home,
okay.
But travel. Work from home, but travel. So it's hybrid. I don't know.
Yeah, got it. I do miss traveling for sure. And then I guess, what are you reading, or what do you read to keep yourself informed, busy, etc.? Whether it be a book, or right now? Sure.
Well,
Who's got time to read? I know it can be a podcast.
I don't mean to be like self-serving, but I do love Lovey Ajayi's podcast, Professional Troublemaker.
Mm-hmm.
Her book is coming out, and I've been listening to her podcast. And especially as I'm getting into the D&I space, it's been amazing just to hear her speakers and their stories. I love her. I love that podcast, and I plan to get her book.
Great. Thanks for that reminder.
I'm reading, Salacious. It's I work with Beverly Smith with Advive, and she has her book, Something from a Mother. So that's what I'm reading right now, just to support, and it's really good too. Good.
So I have this toxic trait of buying a book and then not finishing the one that I just bought. So I have backs, and then I tend to go back to them. But there's an interesting book called Think Like a Monk.
Yes.
Yes. And so it's just really a lot about discipline.
Oh, wow.
Yes. By Jay Shetty, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just really about discipline and the basic things that we kind of know, but he's just reiterating it, such as what you wear every day. Like, you don't need a ton of clothes, because if that's one more thing you have to think about, what am I putting on, then you're distracting from the start of your day. Also, meditating and praying in the morning. As Winnie mentioned, it's very important to center yourself. So these are things that I believe, the book has been helpful. But again, I am the one person that, well, I'm sure there's more, but if you say a book, I'm already about to get it, and then it's a stack. So that's
Jay Shetty has a podcast too. So he's amazing. I love him. I'm a huge fan too.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to check his podcast out. I'm all about trying to learn, more better discipline, although we are working from home, and I believe that's when we need a lot more discipline.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. That's great. Okay. Playlist. What's the one song on your playlist that we would be surprised to know is there?
I can't even say it.
Surprised, not mortified. Surprised.
I'm the worst with music. I just keep listening to the same music time and time again. I oftentimes don't even know what's new music. So I'm like probably the worst person to ask. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a tough one on me.
Playlist? Okay. Well, we'll have to work on that in the new year. I'll make it easy, and you can't say Boomerang. Your favorite movie of all time.
Love Jones.
I told you that was my favorite movie.
Love Jones.
Love Jones for sure. For the soundtrack as well, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'll go with Love and Basketball.
Okay.
Oh man, I can't think. I'm afraid I'm going to say a really dumb movie.
No judgment.
I can't come up with one right now. Sorry.
Okay. I feel like I haven't seen a movie in so long. But Love Jones is definitely one of my favorite movies. And in
Coming
terms
to
of
America this weekend, is anyone watching that?
Oh,
Yes.
I cannot wait for that. I cannot.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. We're doing all this free advertising, but I totally
Right.
For sure. So, we talked about crystal ball, prognostications, etc. But how do you think the industry, the advertising agency, like we're used to calling on agencies, going to the agencies to call on people in this work and home environment, it has definitely pivoted to, Zoom, Google Chats. Let me just clarify that, etc. But how do you think, in terms of business, what if you're trying to just get in? How are you getting your leads and your contacts? I mean, Winnie, you said you have a wonderful Rolodex and you rely on keeping great relationships. And obviously, we kind of had that, but new kids on the block, what do you recommend to them?
So I think it's actually easier now to get meetings, because it's just like they're just turning on their computers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit easier to get meetings because, like I said, they're not going anywhere. You're not coming into their space. But what I find challenging is entertaining because, that's what we do.
Right.
But I mean, I had a great event last night with a team of like 15, 20 people. We have to do it. We sent them drizzlies. It was 15 people. We sent everybody a bottle. And we had a illusionist come, and he entertained them. Everybody was drinking, and then they were like it was like a magician for adults, basically. And when he was done, he kind of left the Zoom on, and we were just chatting for a while. So we're finding ways to make to do our jobs kind of differently. We're pivoting.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And it's, you're right. Entertaining is a huge piece of, what we do, and kind of cut off at the knees. So does anyone else have any entertaining ideas that they've come across that are kind of neat like that? Because I've never heard of that. That's amazing, Winnie.
Yeah, I think, going back to Winnie's point, it is easier to get a meeting now, especially I remember the days when I would fly to LA from New York for like 2 meetings and then come back. Now you can just get on a Microsoft Teams or Google Chats and have a meeting very quickly. So I really enjoy that, because then you don't have to struggle to travel all the time. I have seen a lot of like trivia games, for example, on video. People just getting creative and trying to just change it up with clients. Sometimes it feels a little silly to schedule a video happy hour, but anytime that you can just get together with people and just catch up and laugh and not talk about work, I think that's helpful for agencies and partners too, and just kind of like coming down to like the human side and just kind of laughing and relaxing for 15-20 minutes. I think it's fun.
Yeah, I think the human side, I like what you said, because we get so robotic, and I think that if you can send a client, hey, lunch on me, and you send them a box lunch, that's impressive, or you send them the champagne, whatever, and they're able to open the box while you're on the call or whatever. I think those things really add special touches that we can do, and we had to rethink everything, now that we're at home. But I think it's forced us to be even more creative in our approach.
Definitely. Okay, and as long as we're talking about this, Zoom fatigue, it is real, apparently. What are your best recommendations for it? Because it's something we gotta just go through.
Turn the video off sometimes. I'm always on video, but sometimes I'm just like, you know what? I won't be on video today. I can't like comb my hair, put makeup on, or put out like a decent shirt on. Just gonna turn off the video, and people are just gonna have to deal with it. And it's fine. Like, we're human, we're at home juggling so much. Just kind of like give yourself a break. And if you don't want to be on video, just don't be on video.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that goes back to question number 1 in terms of your wellness and, protecting your space. Like you said, Lori, just blocking off that time or turning off the camera. I mean, it's as simple as that. You have to do you. Winnie, someone said, don't mess up my travel game with all these good ideas for...
Someone who loves to travel. I mean, for work. I'm not
exactly.
Yeah.
For sure.
I have a ton of ideas. Like, we've done cooking classes.
Yeah.
That's another good one. Stuff
great.
That, make them spend that money.
Exactly. Well, I want to wrap up, not too much, but I wanted to make sure people are able to get in touch with you in terms of, if they have additional questions or, just need a networking, reach out, connect. Winnie, what is the best way to reach you on these internet streets?
LinkedIn is great. It's Winnie Bernier. Instagram, it's Winstar B. I don't know if that shows his name. So LinkedIn is probably the best way to get me.
Okay. Perfect.
Same LinkedIn. I'm a huge LinkedIn fan, and I'm always on it. So if anybody ever needs any help or advice, please feel free to reach out. I'm always on.
Great.
Same LinkedIn.
Yes, I'm going to agree. LinkedIn for me as well. Okay. Did I miss anything that we need to talk about? Happy.
No, this month. You did a great job.
Thank
Wonderful
you.
job. Wonderful job.
Thank you. It's so nice to meet you. You know, I have to tell the audience we did not know each other before this evening, and now I feel like I have 3 additional sisters. So I appreciate that. Thank you for being so warm and welcoming with your answers and being vulnerable for some of the other, you know, questions that we had. So I really appreciate that. I'm getting a lot of feedback. Is anyone else?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's me. Okay, there we go. Perfect. So anyway, I was saying thank you. And I also wanted to give thanks to the entire MOBE Symposium team. This is an amazing feat to pull off this entire week. So really, really appreciate my honor to moderate this panel, and B, you know, having the opportunity to discuss the industry with these great women in the industry. So really appreciate that. And I think I have covered off on everything. Rael, are you coming in to lead us out?
Yes. Thank you for such a wonderful night. Lori, can you repeat the name of your book so our audience can go out and get your book?
Sure. It's called A Seat at the Table, A Survival Guide for Women in Business.
Okay, great. And so I want to thank Yesenia, Winnie, and Lori, and especially Judene for being such a great moderator. I think we heard some amazing things. Like, we want to see more authenticity from agencies and brands in the new year. We want to see genuine effort, and we want to see a sustainable spend, because you know, we talk a lot about the money, but we want to make sure that the money is coming in and being spent in our communities. You know, it's very necessary, and it's how we sustain. Tomorrow night is the final day of Women in Advertising Week. We've had phenomenal panels. I encourage our audience to go back to YouTube Live. You could go to the MOBE Symposium channel on YouTube and see all of the panels from the last week. Tomorrow's topic is Chief Marketing Officers, ROI in the New Paradigm. Marketing executives are ultimately responsible for the ROI. How are they navigating, connecting, measuring, and evaluating opportunity for the new paradigm? Join this powerful discussion hosted by Erica Riggs, Chief DE&I of Omnicom Specialty Marketing Group, with Deidre Smalls Landau, U.S. Chief Marketing Officer and Global Head of Culture at Worldwide, and Robin Jackson, Corporate and Brand Communicator and Public Relations Strategist. This will be an awesome topic, an awesome way to wrap up the final series of Women in Advertising Weekend. It's just been phenomenal women, legendary women that have been making a difference in the advertising industry, and we've been learning all week. Thank you for your time, ladies. Thank you for the audience that joined us, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Please share and tell your friends that we are having an awesome time and learning and being inspired. Have a great evening. Signing off. MOBE.
Thank you.
Thank you.